Guys, today only, we are in untouched territory where nobody's been, where there's no construction in the background. We are catching crabs. Don't tell anybody what type of crabs. This is top secret, guys. Top secret crabs for top secret species. If you like learning new things about fishing, be sure to smash that thumbs up button right now. What's up, guys? Appreciate you guys tuning in. If it's your first time viewing one of my episodes, welcome to my channel. We actually just started a brand new series. It's basically behind the scenes of a charter captain. What do I do on a regular basis, on a daily basis? You know, having to do with fishing, sometimes not. Right now, today, I'm actually heading on down to the oyster bars to collect some mud crabs. Mud crabs are something that I like to use for multiple species this time of year. Winter time is the time that I love to target certain species that A, are delicious to eat, and B, that love to eat crabs. So that's why we're going to get them. This time of year, I also like to fish, you know, with shrimp and stuff, but I like the adventure of catching some crabs. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So here we are, we're almost on the oyster bar that I came to grab the crabs from. I like to make this video as educational as possible. So I'm gonna show you a few things. I'm gonna show you how I catch these crabs. I'm gonna show you how I hook these crabs. And I'm also gonna show you how to identify the differences between other crabs. Not all the time, but most of the time you wanna target these crabs on low tide because these oyster beds are sometimes hard to get to on other tides other than low. It's actually a lot of fun. What I like to do is I like to find bigger clusters just like this one, and you simply just tip it over, and they're usually in the pockets of that cluster or they're underneath the cluster. Sometimes they're dug underneath all the oysters themselves inside the mud itself. So here we go. So I just lifted up this cluster, and if you see right here in this little pocket right there, that's a mud crab. Now that's not a huge one, but in most cases when I'm fishing these mud crabs, I'm fishing with either a weight or a jig head, and I'm gonna actually show you those here in just a minute. There he is. There you go. Boom. The first mud crab. They're typically bigger than this, but you got to start somewhere. And I like to use this little gardening tool. This kind of helps me get under bigger clusters as well. See, here's a good example right here. I actually just lifted up this cluster right here, pretty big cluster, and there was a hole underneath it, this little mud pocket here. And what I did was just softly scraped out like this, and then this little guy right here popped out. This is a good bait, guys. Perfect size. And you see they latch on to stuff. With catching these mud crabs, it's not always you just come out here and you just lift up every rock and they're underneath every single rock. Sometimes you really got to put in some time. On a given charter trip, a lot of people have the luxury of coming to the boat ramp, hopping on the boat, the bait's there, the charter captain's ready to go to a specific spot, and he already kind of has the day mapped out and planned because he already put in the time. One of the things that I love most about coming out here and exploring the outdoors is just the adventure part of it. I just lifted up this big cluster right here, and actually, as you can see right there, see, they're really hard to see sometimes because they're blended in. They use that camouflage as a defense mechanism. And right there is another oyster crab. And right there is another mud crab. And that's actually the ideal size of what we're looking for. And if you can't justify the size, based upon the camera that I'm using. This is actually the size of about a quarter. Now that you guys have a pretty good idea on how I catch the mud crabs, we're gonna go back to my house. I'm gonna show you guys a few different ways that I like to rig them. All right, and we're back at the house. So I'm gonna just spread this out just a little bit here. All right, we got one. All right, we got one out. This is a perfect size one. We're gonna be using that as an example to rig this and how I rig them. Rigging is totally contingent upon the situation. There's different situations for different type of rigging techniques. As I said before, guys, the size of a quarter is about the ideal size for these, and that's about the size of this one right here. When I'm freelining them, I like to use a short shank, thick shaft hook, and I like to use 20-pound test fluorocarbon leader. All this tackle is going to be linked in the description below this video. So with this, the reason why I like this wide shank, short shank hook, or these wide short shank hooks, is that way you can get inside the joint. But if you see that joint right there behind the main claw, right behind the main claw, there's a joint right there. And in that joint is where I like to hook it, and I like to come right out of his back. So the hook is like kind of set like this. So it's going to be through this joint, and I like to come in from the side too. It makes it easier to get into that joint pocket right there. One other technique I like to use while freelining is I like to use a little split shot weight about 1 foot away from the hook. So about like that. So the other rigging technique that I like to go over with you guys is the same thing. You're actually going to hook it the same exact way for every rigging technique. The side of the crab is preference, left side or right side. But again, right in that little, I hope you guys can see that, right in that joint pocket right there, I have found that's the best place to hook these. Now these are not the only jig heads that I use, although these will be in the description below because I do use these because I love the hook set. These are stout hooks and they don't bend easy. But I will also put in the description below my buddy, a buddy of mine by the name of John, and you may already know him. But John actually makes a very, very good jig head that I also use for sheep's head and hogfish, and I'll also link his website in the description below. As I was going through the few crabs that I got today, something just rang a bell. That's conservation. Conservation is so important, and I want to start stressing it in every single one of my episodes. Conservation can work in so many different ways. From just picking up trash where you're going. I try to do that on a daily basis no matter where I'm fishing. Conservation efforts, guys, any way you can make a difference, it's going to make a difference for the better for our fishery to stay alive. This looks like a small stone crab, and this is very important in conservation efforts because if you don't know what you're catching, the likely of you catching something that you can't keep legally is very likely. This is actually a mud crab. Mud crabs look very similar to a stone crab because they have that fat claw and then their pincher claw. But to an untrained eye, I can understand why these would look like a stone crab. The slight difference to me between a mud crab and a stone crab, the stone crab has a rounder shaped shell, and as well as a lighter, this is actually just mud on here that's dried, but they actually have a much lighter hue to them. I'm gonna actually put on the screen right now a side-by-side picture of a mud crab next to an actual stone crab, and you can actually tell the differences. It's very important that you guys recognize differences that you can recognize. That in and of itself is actually a conservation effort on your behalf. Anyways, guys, that's it for catching mud crabs. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please, please, please give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps my channel grow. And thanks so much again for tuning in.